One at a time, and we'll get the job done. Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.
And the home of the Jets.
What is going on, everybody? We have Dylan Tereman from JetNation.com, who I've actually talked to briefly a couple times, but I see your work everywhere, bro. Like, draft time, it's like you're tweeting, you're doing this, doing that. Your content's awesome, dude. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Much appreciated. That's always a great intro. I greatly appreciate that. And your intro, man, that's awesome. To have the home of the Jets, man, like that's the part of my childhood with this team that really gives me goosebumps every time. So I'm so glad your intro has that. But happy to chop it up with you, man. First time, hopefully first time of many.
Oh, of course. You know what it was? We used to have like intros from all the current players, and the team has been so bad. And these guys leave like almost every year. So it's like, you know what? We have to go old school here and go to like the known that everybody can kind of support, because it's been tough times with the Jets, man.
Yeah, you make an edit for an intro video that includes Aaron Rodgers, and then in 2 years, you're like, oh, shoot, I need a new one to exclude Aaron Rodgers. So it's always a turnstile with the players, just like buying jerseys, right?
100%. Chris, thank you so much for all the kind words, man. Pretty much every stream we do, you jump on and give the kind words. Definitely appreciate it. So, Dylan, before we go into all the draft prospects and the roster, what got you into evaluating players, man?
So I moved from New Jersey to South Carolina with my then fiance, and I was just in between jobs looking for work after the move. And I just put a bunch of feelers out to a bunch of different sites and said, hey, I don't have college experience, but I love the Jets. I write pretty well. At least I thought so at the time. I knew I could be better. And, I didn't get many hits, but Jet Nation replied, and that was 2019, so beginning of the year. So I think my first article was covering the coaching search, which led to Adam Gase. So maybe I'm just like the bad news of the Jet Nation, because it's been kind of downhill ever since. But I don't know. You got to take a shot on yourself, and I just asked around and tried to get an opportunity, volunteer, not even asking for money. And 6 years later, here we are doing prospects, doing draft shows, and it's just been door after door. I put my foot in the door, and I just try to keep it open as long as possible.
That's the best way to do it. It's funny because I actually started doing content with Jet Nation myself way back when, because Phil was like, JetNation.com was always great. The message boards was always awesome. And like, we got to do a podcast or a radio show, because WFN was great, but it never really spoke to Jet fans. So Dennis Agapito and I started this show. We're like, nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to call in. Nobody cares. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, we're actually getting callers. Wait a minute, we're actually getting listeners. Like, what the hell's going on here? And then Phil was so cool because he let us do whatever we wanted to. Like, listen, it's your content, your show. You do what you feel best. I trust you. And it's like, you only go as far as you apply yourself. Like with you, dude, it's like, if you really apply yourself, you can accomplish anything you want. If you want to be lazy or inconsistent or do a half-ass job, you're going to get half-ass results. So Phil always hooked me up big time, man.
100%. He's one of my biggest supporters, and I'll agree with some of your things that you're saying. You have to apply yourself in this. And there was multiple times where like I slacked off and the team wasn't doing well, and my content took a dip, or I was kind of disappearing for a couple weeks at a time because the team wasn't doing well. But once you apply yourself and like just dedicate to the grind, and you're putting out videos, and even if they're short form, long form, just put the content out there, and you'll never know what happens.
100%. And I always said too, like, you can't focus on like how many views. Focus on good content. Like, when we first started out, we weren't getting any. I'm like, no listens, no views. I'm like, all right, we're enjoying it. It's fun. It's a team that we love. So then it's like, it catches on, great. If it doesn't, like, you'll make a video that you think is great and you get like 500 views. You're like, what the hell is this? Then you do one you absolutely hate and it blows up. You're like, how is that possible? But it's just, I think people realize if you're genuine and you're passionate about what you do, they want to hear more about that. Like with you, dude, you can see you have that energy about you, which people want to learn more, which is great.
I appreciate it. And yeah, you gotta feel confident about what you put out, because the second you don't feel confident, they can tell when you're just this prospect is he's a wider, they can feel right through that. They can see right through
100%.
all that. So you got to be as honest and as transparent as possible. And if you don't know something, you just have to admit it rather than try to lie for 45 seconds up here.
Well, that dude, I always say that. Like, we get like callers calling in, like, we hate this guy. Okay, give me 5 reasons why. And other than I watch his YouTube highlights, you know what I mean? And if somebody asks
Yeah.
me, I'm like, bro, I have no idea. Like, I did the draft show with like Matt and Green Bay and those guys, and they're like, what do you think about this player? I'm like, I have no idea who this guy is. It's like 5th round linebacker, no idea. I couldn't tell you the first thing. I'm not even gonna lie, but I wanted the wide receiver. You know what I mean? But like, you just got to be genuine about stuff, and people respect it.
100%. Yeah. And that's part of it. And with the draft, there's so many names that somebody in the chat is always going to have a name you're not familiar with. Some will even try to get you with the fake prospect names on some shows. And you have to be careful. You can't just start talking about random people because they might not even exist.
Dude, I didn't even know Will McDonald. Like, Will McDonald, I was like, what? Who? Where?
Mhm.
I was completely caught off guard with him.
Yeah. Huge shock. And I will remember that draft live show with Glenn till the end of time. Our faces on that show were just frozen for like 5 seconds. Like, what? The kid was so hyped to yell the name too. And it was like, oh, if he only knew what he was announcing to us as crazy, ravaged Jets fans.
You ain't kidding. So now we go into this draft where we had a lot of expectations because, you have a whole new regime, Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, a lot of holes need to be filled with contributors this year, not guys like that are projects. So going into the first round, what was your mindset? Were you amongst the mindset where Membu was your guy, or were you saying, you know what, Tyler Warren's the guy, we can get a tackle later on?
If it came down to those two, yeah, Membu was my guy 10 times out of 10. I tried to stack a power rankings board the week of. It felt like it was always changing every day. I woke up and wanted a new player, but it kind of came down to Will Campbell and Armand Membu. If all things were there, those were the two guys, or Mason Graham as well. So those two weren't there, him and Campbell. So it came down to Membu. And then I was a big Shamar Stewart fan. I was entirely, let's go trenches first and build inside out. I feel like that's what a lot of team builders, their philosophy is. Inside out, let's work in the trenches. So Shamar was my guy, kind of pushed Tyler Warren down the board. I would have liked him over Tet McMillan, but I was not a fan of a tight end at 7. I liked the prospects at 42 at the position better, and I think it worked out in the Jets' favor. Sure, you could say Ariante Ursery was there in round 2, and you could have gone Warren Ursery, but the Membu Taylor combination to me is way better. I feel much better about them being day 1 starters as opposed to Tyler Warren, who I was confident in, but then Ursery is probably a work in progress. He might not even start over a core of 4 on week 1. So to me, it was all about getting the starter on the offensive line first and then filling the rest of your pieces, because offensive line is always going to hold the biggest hole, in my opinion, in your boat. I always reference you want your boat not to be filling up with water, so you need people throwing water out of the boat. And Armand Membu, he's throwing buckets out of the boat. So the hole at right tackle has been solved, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that was my concern too, where I understood the notion to get like Warren or even McMillan, but I'm like, what's the drop off in round 2 to your right tackle? Like, I want that dominant right tackle. You have your bookend tackles. You have Olu, you have him. They're both young. You build the offensive line. You can run the football. You can protect Justin Fields, and then you find your playmakers. So I had no problem at all at Membu. I liked it. I thought it made a lot of sense. Some people call it safe. I call it smart. This is how you build your team, right? This is the anchor, is your offensive line. Now, round 2 is where it got interesting, because now I started to get nervous where I'm like, we need playmakers. I want wide receiver, tight end. No excuses, because the Jets are kind of thin in some areas there. But what'd you think about Mason Taylor?
Yeah, the theme for night 2, and I did Jake Asman's live draft show, the 5-hour marathon with him, and my theme was pass catchers and pass rushers. I won't argue if you get any of those. So that means tight ends, wide receivers, edge rushers specifically, but I would have taken an interior defensive line as well. But when it came down to Taylor, I thought it was extreme value. There was a lot of rumors that the Eagles or maybe the Chiefs at the back end of round 1 were going to be in the market for him. I think they had him in even on a 30 visit, one of those two teams. So to me, it was not a surprise that he was there per se, but the fact that he was there, to me, the board kind of fell almost perfectly for them, where you didn't take tight end at 7 and then you kind of had your guy fall to you at 42. I think it's extra points because it makes all the Dolphins fans mad that it's a bloodline pick within the division. But when you look at the film of Mason Taylor, everything is just kind of a solid above average. Nothing really flashes to you. He's very good at hands catching. He doesn't pull it into the body. Not going to give you a ton of after the catch ability, but he's shifty enough where he can make a man miss in space. He's not going to be a big brute like I felt like Tyler Warren would have been in the open space. But when you're talking about smart picks and safe picks, they kind of go hand in hand. With Membu, I felt like they were both a smart and a safe pick. And Mason Taylor, again, a smart and a safe pick. You can project him to be your day one starter at tight end. And he's going to give you a net positive, in my opinion, in the run game and the pass game. There was guys, even Colston Loveland, I don't know if he's given you a plus in the run game out the gates, whereas Mason Taylor at least showed a willingness to block. He's not going to, just put his hands on you and stop and just hope that you don't go around him. He'll at least, show some physicality. So it's only going to get better in time with him. But to come away with a second starter, at least in my opinion, it is a home run 2-for-2 start.
Now, can you see him being like a red zone target, like a safety valve for Justin Fields? He's that kind of player, like a big target over the middle. Like, how do you see him playing out there?
Yeah, no, I certainly think maybe not necessarily box to box, we'll call it, but inside the 20, I definitely see Mason Taylor exploding with his production. I think back to the big Jeremy Ruckert play where he caught the one-hander in the back of the end zone. I think it was just a little seam route or a post route in the playoffs for Ohio State, and Justin Fields hit him. So it's one of those things where maybe not in the middle of the field, they'll probably use their wide receivers and backs more. But once you get into the red zone, I certainly think Mason Taylor is going to be a safety valve. LSU used him as a safety valve, even though they had a plethora of talent at wide receiver. He had a game-winning catch for them just on a little play-action slide route from like the 3-yard line, caught it falling into the end zone for a game-winning touchdown. So LSU thought to use him that way, and I genuinely hope the Jets do too, because I think that's where he can excel.
Now, what do you think about the Jets tight end group before we move forward? Where you mentioned Ruckert, who's been disappointing, so far. Stone Smart, Yabo was gone, Tyler Conklin's gone. You have Mason Taylor. To me, it's like I wouldn't mind adding another piece to this puzzle. To be honest with you, you can get another veteran to the mix because I think it's like I don't know, it's like incomplete. How do you feel about the wide receiver, the tight end group? I'm sorry.
This is a position I wanted to double up on in the draft if everything went accordingly, and certainly the trade ups and, having 7 overall picks when you started with, I think, 8 or 9 definitely helps or, is a disadvantage when you're trying to double up. But when I'm looking at the room, Kuntz to me, probably going to be cut. I would honestly take Andrew Beck over Zach Kuntz to be your fullback / tight end 4. Yep. Neil Johnson, again, bottom of the roster guy. He's not going to make it. So that really leaves you with 3, Taylor, Ruckert, and Smart. I'm okay. I like Taylor, like I said. Ruckert, I mean, if we get anything out of Ruckert, I'll consider that a positive, even if he just holds up in blocking and maybe the confidence of having Justin Fields back there. Maybe it's, the last year that they're actually going to give him a chance, so he's going to try a little bit harder. Something's got to give with Ruckert where I just need to see it with him. And 250 yards. Like, please, can we just see that? And Stone Smart, I mean, yeah, he's your athletic wide tight end, No, F tight end. I'm getting him backwards now. He's your athletic F. He's going to be your slot guy. Maybe if they cut Lazard or, Josh Reynolds goes down with an injury, Stone Smart can step up and be your big frame wide receiver who really is a tight end. Not going to give you a ton in the pass or in the run game, but yeah, this is a position where cut down day, when they go from 90 to 53 in August, this is a position where I'm like, okay, where can we find a little bit of value, a little bit of talent? Maybe one of these guys who was a late round day 3 tight end who the Jets were eyeing, maybe he slips through the cracks with his current team, and the Jets are able to get a guy on waivers. I know that was where Joe Douglas thrived, and maybe Muji and Glenn can find their guys there too. So I would agree, you have to upgrade the room. Maybe not a Goddard level trying to trade for the pick, but even still, you're trading a 2026 asset at this point. So you're looking 11, 10 months ahead, and the projection isn't as bad as trading an asset from the past draft this year.
Yeah, and you're also helping out Justin Fields and the passing offense, which could be stagnant if nobody's getting open or these guys are all struggling. And then you're like one injury away from like, oh man, this position's empty. You know what I mean? Like you're one Garrett Wilson injury away, you're one Mason Taylor injury away to be like, all right, well, this position sucks right now. So now you go into the 3rd round, and I'm being completely transparent. I was thinking wide receiver. I was hell bent on it. I was looking forward to it. I thought it made a lot of sense because to me, it's like you want to put Justin Fields in the best position to succeed, and you want to score points. So the pick comes in, and it's AZ Thomas, and I'm like, what the hell are we doing? We just got Brandon Stevens. You got Sauce. You got Michael Carter second. We have all these guys. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe you can move Stevens to safety. Like you're trying to think about it real quickly, how it's all processes. And I just couldn't figure it out until you look at the player, you listen to Aaron Glenn break it down. You think about the draft as not only this year, it's about the future as well for the years to come and how you want to handle your secondary. What were your thoughts on that pick there? Were you surprised by the pick there? And who did you want?
No, I was certainly surprised. Jalen Knoll, the wide receiver from Iowa State, who ended up going to Houston to go alongside Jaden Higgins, the other Iowa State wide receiver, that was the guy I was clamoring for at 73. I wasn't even thinking about cornerback. Now, pre-free agency, I was mocking Savone Revel and AZ Thomas to the Jets at 42 because I felt like it was a clear-cut need before Brandon Stevens enters the fold. Right. Then we get Brandon Stevens. We do the whole $12 million CB2. We can cross that off our wish list at least until day 3. Go get your developmental Brandon Echols replacement. Yep. And then the value of AZ Thomas at 73 comes in. And my reaction live on Jake's show was actually priceless because I immediately said, this guy's going to start for the Jets by like week 8 to 10 of this season, not next season, this season. I do think Brandon Stevens is probably going to end up going back to safety. Again, this was before the future picks that we didn't know yet, where they also got another DB. Yep. So now we have just 6 or 7 capable bodies, in my opinion, where the versatility on the back end is really going to be the glue of this defense, in my opinion. I don't think it's always going to be we go as they go with the defensive front. I feel like it's going to be we go as they go on the back end, and we're going to have 6 capable guys. You have now Sauce, Stevens, Thomas, Carter, Moore, who will get into Cisco, even Tony Adams as your 7th guy. Like if Tony Adams is your 7th worst DB, as opposed to being maybe like your 3rd best last year with the Michael Carter injury included, like you're looking at a complete 180 in the room. So AZ Thomas, to me, I just put out a film breakdown on our channel, Jet Nation. So I hope everybody checks that out later tonight. But I was blown away by, I don't care about the 4.58. If you open your hips and you can mirror and match a wide receiver and you're staying in his hip pocket, the technique that AG talked about, the 2-hand punch, I mean, it's a little risky boom or bust at the line of scrimmage. But if you can, perfect that craft, people aren't going anywhere on you. Now, 1 hand you can open up and let them go, but 2 hands, you're really jamming them. So he's a special player to me. Probably should have gone in the 2nd round if we're just being honest. And the Jets got lucky. I'll just flat out say it. I think they got lucky that he's even there at 73. So the value of him, absolutely my favorite pick of the entire class.
I was shocked. Then you see it. Then you think about Brandon Stevens. And if Aaron Glenn stays true to himself, he said it's all about competition. The best guy is going to play. Like you said, if AZ Thomas really comes on, has a great camp, stays healthy, adapts quickly to the defense, and you're like, all right, you know what? He could push for that spot much sooner rather than later. And then you move Stevens to safety, which is interesting because to me, it's like safety's like a hole in this team. Like Tony Adams, I think they don't really want. They kept him because they had to. There's nobody else. A lot of veteran guys are out there. They didn't sign any of them, which is kind of weird. I mean, we'll talk about Malachi Moore soon, but it's like it's a weird position to see how they're handling it. I thought they kind of put a priority on it this offseason, and they didn't. That kind of surprise you at all?
Yeah, I was always like way back to the Kyle Hamilton draft class. I was saying the Jets need to prioritize safety. And I'm glad they got Garrett Wilson. Don't get me wrong, but I mocked Sauce and Kyle Hamilton to the Jets at that point because they're just guys that are built in a lab and that shouldn't be on defense making the plays that they are. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton had a slow start, but now he's really freaking good. So it looks like a huge miss, but the Jets got Garrett Wilson, so you can't complain. Now, if they traded up instead of Jermaine and got Kyle Hamilton, that would have been fantastic too. But I've been saying we need to apply actual resources to the safety position. Maybe that's a $12 million convert from corner, but he did play safety in college. So I wouldn't hate it. From a logistics standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense financially, but I mean, you can understand from the roster perspective, he's here. And the unfortunate part is free agency happens before the draft. So they didn't know AZ Thomas was going to be there at 73. They probably had no plans of taking a corner at 42, in my opinion. So the fact that it just kind of happened how it did, it leaves them with a little bit of a riches in the back end. But yeah, safety needed to be a place that you prioritize. How does Tony Adams go from being benched by the owner to still on the team the next year? He survives all the cuts that have been made. It blows my mind that Tony Adams, he must have pictures on somebody.
Yeah, it's strange at this point. And you really good point. It's just, I'm curious to see how it all plays out in the secondary, man. It's just, it's like you said, I think they stay true to the draft board. He was the best guy on the board. Like, we like the player. Aaron Glenn knows his player inside out and backwards. So I'm like, all right, makes sense. So now 4th round, now I'm starting to get a little antsy where I'm like, I want a wide receiver because I wanted one in the 3rd round. I didn't get one. 4th round comes and they announce the name, and the instant reaction everywhere is, man, he drops a lot of passes. Great speed, drops a lot of passes. I mean, universally, all our breakup saying was, wow, speed burner, can't catch the football consistently, which is a problem when you already have Alan Lazard on your team, but you have the world-class speed. Then you see the whole John Gruden video where he says the sleeper of his draft. He loves the kid's work ethic. He's showed a lot of improvement. He's committed to it. Your take on Arian Smith? He was probably the guy most Jet fans are pissed off about.
The most discussed draft pick, probably even more than Shador Sanders. I feel like Arian Smith is being talked about as like the most discussed prospect. And that's why I had to start with his film review. I needed to go in and find if there was some good riddled in with the bad. I mean, you have 10 drops, so clearly something went wrong. But I'm going through his film. Dude, Carson Beck should never have been projected to go number 1 in the way too early mock drafts. Like, he went back to school for good reason because there were some terrible throws where Arian Smith almost didn't have a chance. And I'm not excusing 10 catches or drops. Maybe I'll excuse 3. So he's really at 7. But still, when you have injuries and bad hands at the wide receiver position and you're already a little old, it does make it seem a little tough. I was live with Dom C when the pick came down, so I got to hear his genuine, immediate reaction. And just off the words he said, and Dom C is one of the best draft Jets guys.
Awesome.
It's also not gospel, but everything he said kind of matched up with what I saw on film. He's probably around 5, maybe around 6 guy. He's going to compete on special teams right away. I tried to find as much good as I could in his film. There's a couple corner routes where he sits against the cloud corner in cover 2 and shows, solid hands outside the frame. But other than his speed, I don't know what the plan is. And they seem very confident with the plan in him. I saw the YouTube video the team put out. AG said they had a plan. Engstrand said they had a plan. Sean Jefferson, the wide receivers coach, said they had a plan. And it's all about just coming in and executing the plan. So if Arian Smith is able to put his head down and work, like Gruden said, maybe there's a chance that this plan actually works. I think you're kind of threading a needle if you're able to get, more than a 4th round value out of Arian Smith. But I'm going to remain hopeful just based on the fact that they have a plan. I don't think this is the empty words of Saleh. We're going to, you don't have, whatever he said to Zach Wilson, you don't have to do it. We're going to, build it around you. I don't think it's like that. I genuinely think Arian Smith, a guy from Georgia, 5-year school player at a high prestigious school like Georgia, he's a smart kid. He knows what he needs to fix. If his concentration and his focus is there, I think he can, limit those drops and actually take the top off the defense burner and allow for the underneath stuff to Malachi Corley and Garrett Wilson. So as much as I think it is a reach and I agree with those takes, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt year 1 just because so much is so new that maybe Arian Smith can come on and be the great value Jameson Williams for the Jets offense and actually open up more underneath stuff for Corley and Wilson.
Well, that was the one thing I liked that Aaron Glenn said, where he watched Jameson Williams struggle with drops and work himself out of it. And Williams has ridiculous speed too. So he saw it firsthand. I mean, Jameson Williams obviously a better player, but at least he saw it. He knows how to work with it. I'm like, I get it. It's like, it seems like it's a lot of risk for your potential reward where it's at a position of need. Like, you desperately need help at wide receiver. Like you mentioned, Malachi Corley, we have no idea what to expect out of him after last year, how he's going to be used in this offense, what this staff even thinks about him. They inherited him. Do they like him? Do they not like him? Like, we don't know, like, what they're inheriting, what they actually value, and what else they want to add. Like, even like now, I'd add a wide receiver. Like, I would still add somebody else, whether it's, a veteran market, make a trade, because it's just not enough, dude. Like, I think Alan Lazard, reduced price tag, great, whatever, 1.7. Now, to me, it's a tradable contract. You can trade him, but he's still great blocker, wonderful, can't catch a football. Like, you need pass catchers, and they don't have them, so I still want more, to be honest with you.
Yeah, honestly, a guy that I would watch, and I know the rumors are kind of hot and heavy since the draft, and they drafted 2 wide receivers in the 1st and 3rd round. Romeo Doubs from Green Bay. I would love him. He was one of the guys that I watched at the Senior Bowl a couple years back and just came away super impressed with his route running. And they took 2 wide receivers that year with Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, except there was like second round and fifth round or fourth round for Dobbs. And I immediately said Dobbs was going to be better than Christian Watson. And obviously injuries played into the consideration there, but it's kind of turned out to be true. So if we could get Romeo Dobbs from the Packers, I would love to do it. Cut Allen Lazard or trade him to whoever Aaron Rodgers signs with, Pittsburgh, wherever. Give him like a seventh rounder and just hope for a seventh round pick swap. And you just kind of get Lazard off your books. But you bring in a guy like Dobbs and your entire wide receiver room looks a little bit different. He's your instant number 2 wide receiver, pushing Reynolds down to 3, which means that Corley and Smith are fighting for the 3 and 4. And you mentioned Corley, a complete unknown. Basically, you're going off of Sean Jefferson's word because he was here last year, and the scouting reports that Glenn and Muji had from their separate stops in Detroit and Denver and how they felt about Corley. Other than that, we just need to see if they have a plan for him like they do with Smith, or if he's able to execute the plan. I feel like a lot of maturity things have been coming out about Malachi Corley and not being ready for the NFL. So if it's a humbling experience for him this summer and he can learn the playbook and get in and do his job, I can see him being the 4 and then Smith as your 5. I think that's it's a much better wide receiver room than if you have Allen Lazard on it.
Yeah, 100%. Now, do you have the feeling that the Jets are putting a premium on coaching? It seems like they have a lot of players with a lot of unknown, a lot of untapped potential, hopefully, but they're putting a premium like, oh, we're going to coach these guys up. Trust us. We got it. We'll get the most out of them instead of going for the known commodity or the higher, like, not say like maybe better prospect, like Aaron Smith, for example. There's probably better opposite wide receiver. They went with him with all that speed. We can figure everything else out. We got it. Or do you kind of get that sense too? They're kind of being not arrogant, but they're confident about their coaching ability?
Oh, they're certainly towing the line of cockiness and confidence, in my opinion, because you have to thread the needle with a lot of these guys, Justin Fields included. I mean, you're putting all your chips into the Justin Fields basket, and I'm cool with that, with their conviction on him. I would have, liked a quarterback on day 3. Will Howard was my guy, but the fact that they showed conviction in him is, a positive in my opinion after the fact. But you are threading a ton of needles on the offense and defensive side of the ball. Even Andre Sisco, one of your premier headlining free agents, he didn't have a great 2024. You're really banking on his 2023 and the coaching to get him back into form. So, yeah, I do think it's a big risk. Do I think it's going to blow up in their face? Probably not, especially not in year 1. I don't think the bottom's going to completely fall out. And I think they can at least coach up more than half of the guys that they believe they can. Maybe not 100% of the guys, but I do think we'll see better production out of the free agents that had a bad 2024 and they kind of got a good value buy low 1-year deal. I could see them turning those guys around. Maybe not everybody, but I think the biggest one would be Fields and then Arian Smith if they're actually able to hit on him as a rookie.
Yeah, 100%. So now you go after Aaron Smith. I'm like, all right, I understand the pick. I don't necessarily like it, but next pick, I'm like, defensive tackle. I'm like, we got to go. Let's think about run stoppers. Like, you try to think like, our vision. What's the best way to build this team? Then they come out with Malachi Moore, and I'm like, what in the look? I'm like, clearly I'm not in their draft room because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing over here. But you love the player. You're trying to understand the fit after you went through the mental gymnastics of saying Stevenson's gonna go to safety. We're gonna move A.Z. Thomas here, and now you're like, well, here's a curveball altogether. Now I don't know what we're doing. Did you like the pick? Would you went somewhere else there instead of him?
I probably would have went somewhere else, but I do like the pick. I was a huge fan of his. I write up the spring games every June, July. I start looking at the top 25 college teams and start writing up their spring games just to get a name recognition process with some of these guys who are going to come out. Malachi Moore is all the way back in 2022, and he just has plus marks all over the film. It's a spring game, so you can't take a ton of things from it. But he was good as a blitzer, as a single high safety, a split safety on the back end. He was good in the box, slot, doing everything for Alabama. And I believe the comparisons to Brian Branch. He's an excellent communicator. I've said this a couple times now. Jamian Sherwood wears the green dot. I wouldn't be surprised if by 2026 or 2027, Malachi Moore has the green dot because Brian Branch wears it in Detroit. And we know how they feel about Brian Branch. And if you're playing the same style role, you're just as smart, in my opinion. Malachi Moore is such a cerebral player. He'll be a communicator on the back end. Him, Michael Carter, Jamian, Quincy. I feel like those are going to be your 4 biggest communicators on the defense. So Malachi Moore might be one of those guys like AZ where it's like it doesn't matter what the guys ahead of him are doing. Malachi
Right.
Moore is going to be doing his own thing. That's going to make it hard to keep him on the bench. So in the moment, I didn't love the appeal of the pick. I was with you, defensive tackle, and my guy Tonka Hemingway from South Carolina went a couple picks after them. So I was a big any Gamecock at this point. Like I was a big fan of, especially their D line. So yeah, the Malachi Moore pick was a little tough. Seeing Jalen Royals 3 names later to the Chiefs of all places is gonna hurt too. But no, I think when I settled down, watched the film, there's some groin injury issues. Maybe he's not entirely ready. That was reported by Will Parkinson on a couple podcasts. So if he's not ready for training camp, it's going to significantly hinder him. Obviously, rookies have a hard time. If they miss any time in August, every week they miss feels like a month of install. Like you're not going to get on the field right away. But if he comes in after that break in like late July, early August, and he's 100%, I genuinely think he's another guy. It's like, it doesn't matter what Tony Adams is doing. It doesn't matter what's going on with Stevens and AZ. Malachi Moore is going to force his way onto the field, and he's going to be a strength, in my opinion. So maybe not a year 1 hit, but certainly a year 2, year 3, he's going to be a big contributor, in my opinion.
And that's what I kept having to remind myself, where it's like, we're so desperate for talent to have an impact this year, but you have to have a vision towards next year and the year after and building your true nucleus going forward. And Thomas fits in that, Moore fits in that, where it's like, okay, listen, and you got to figure out what are they going to do with Sauce. We all assume they're going to keep paying him. Stevens could be gone. Like, you don't know. And now this is how you literally build through the draft. You build a guy with potential and you develop them and groom them. And year 2, year 3, year 4, they're your starter. They're your guy you keep instead of going and get free agents. So I understood it. So now I'm still bothered by wide receiver, still no defensive tackle. And we go through the draft. So next pick, they go back-to-back Miami guys, which was interesting. And just positions I was surprised by. I'm not questioning the player. I'm questioning kind of the approach based on value and need. Did the linebacker surprise you?
No, the linebacker more so than the edge absolutely surprised me. I've been trying to do as much as I can on the Miami guys, and the linebacker keeps slipping through the cracks for me in terms of like just trying to get exposure to him. I was watching Tyler Barron earlier this morning, and Francisco Maligoa did not look that great. There was a couple plays where he was just sliding all over the turf. There was a screen pass where he couldn't get out into space fast enough, got crossed up, fell on his ass. So like, there's not a ton for me to give you about Francisco Maligoa other than he's different from a style perspective of what we have. So if you're going to say in base 4-3, we're going to go Quincy, Jamian, and then Maligoa, I'm okay with that. I don't think he's fit to be a starter out the gates. I feel like the Jets are going to play a lot of 4-2-5 in their nickel as their base anyway. But I feel like he's probably going to be that first guy up to be in the 3 linebacker sets. Does that prove to be, a good thing? I'm not sure. But when you look at the rest of the room, Zaire Barnes, Jackson Sermon, the 2 UDFAs who I haven't gotten to yet, like I don't know anything about those guys either. So he's really just in a room full of unknowns after the top 2. So why not? It's anybody's game. I didn't appreciate, or I shouldn't say appreciate. I shouldn't agree with the pick of linebacker. I'm with you, dude. Defensive tackle, man. Like, how do you just ignore it? All of these picks. So I was cool with it. Yeah. Yaya Black from Iowa went 2 picks later. He was a guy I watched at the Senior Bowl. Like any of these guys, like just defensive tackle. It's like when they announced the 1 pick and they just said the position for the Packers. They said wide receiver. Everybody went crazy. They didn't even care who it was. Yep. That's how Jets fans would have been with defensive tackle. Obviously, 100%. They got Matthew Golden, who's a great player. But if you just said defensive tackle, it didn't matter what the name was. The Jets fans were going to be happy. So it was a tough pill to swallow. And then the next guy who they traded up for, I'm okay with. You needed bodies on D-line. Yeah. I needed Michael Clemens off this field, off this roster as quickly as possible. I'm not saying Barron is going to achieve that, but if Barron can at least compete and be that next guy up in the rotation who's playing 30% of the snaps, I'm cool with that. Don't put him inside, though. You got to play him in a 5 technique or a wide 9. Anything like 4-eye, 3 technique where he's inside with the guards, I don't really love it. And I'm going to use Connor Rogers' term. He doesn't have enough sand in his pants to be inside against the guards and centers. So as much as everybody wants the JFM replacement, I don't think it's Tyler Barron. There's a bit of, questionable stuff going on with his commitments in college. He went from Tennessee to getting kicked off Tennessee, which is reported as not being true because he was bragging about his NIL deals to some of his teammates. And apparently the coach kicked him off. And then he tried to go to Ole Miss, and then he flipped his commit to Louisville, and then he flipped his commit to Miami. And that's where he ended up. So a lot of weird things happened during his college process that I'm not sure exactly what the truth is, but yeah. I mean, if you kick somebody off for saying he got some money as a college kid, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with it, but he's an interesting one to me. His Tennessee tape was fun. He was behind James Pierce Jr. as well. And they also had Omar Norman Lott. So they had much more talent on Tennessee. And then when he went to Miami, he was pretty much the guy. Like he's the best one there. And relentless motor. I thought he was good against the run. When he's playing from the wide positioning, though, if he's inside and you can get 4 hands on him, it's really tough. He's not built in the lower half, in my opinion, to win with leverage. His speed to power was okay, but again, he needs to get that runway to get the speed so that his power works. He can't just go in and immediately go power. I don't think it works for him. So I was, at this point, 162 and 176. I kind of threw my hands up and said, Chris Banjo, these are probably going to be your guys. And if that's all they are, that's cool, man. Because you have to plan for special teams too. It's an important side of the ball. We know how many linebackers and defensive linemen they use on special teams. They're not going to use their starters. So if both of these guys end up being Banjo's best friends, that's okay with me.
So now that we'll go through, I was with you with the quarterback position too, which obviously they had no picks left, but I was hoping, especially with Jordan Travis retiring, that the Jets did take a flyer on a quarterback. Will Howard went late. You see they got Brady Cook, which, okay, you know what? It's somebody in the building. They got Adrian Martinez. But what do you think about the overall class? Like, if you had to say, what is an Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji kind of guy, based on what we saw in this draft class, what would you say are the characteristics?
I definitely think you're going to look at least in the beginning portion of the draft, they were all young. I think all these guys are going to be able to share their first drink together midway through the season. Membu, Taylor, and Thomas. Membu just turned 21. Taylor and Thomas are still 20. In my opinion, just elite athletes. I wouldn't say, Mason Taylor is an elite athlete, but he's above average. Membu, to me, is an elite athlete. AZ Thomas, I think everything but his straight line speed says elite athlete to me. So I would say that those are the traits. Probably high IQ. I would consider all 3 of these guys. Physicality, another thing. The choke 'em out line. That had me going to run through a wall for AG. Like, I'm ready to choke him out at the line of scrimmage. So I think it comes down to physicality, age, leadership. I think they were all, if not captains, they were, not like leadership council. We shouldn't do the Zach Wilson thing, but these are all players who are highly thought of in their own programs. And AZ Thomas, Florida State was projected to go number 1 or be the number 1 team in the ACC. They had like 80,000 votes by the voters to be number 1. They finished 2-10. So when you have a guy like AZ Thomas and Joshua Farmer, who are high prospects on a really bad team, they could easily just hang it up and say, you know what, I'm going to rest on my draft evaluation and I'm going to be a top 100 pick anyway. And let's just ride this thing out. Those guys showed grit and toughness the entire season, even though it was 2-10 and they're losing to Georgia Tech in Ireland. So it was not a great season for the Seminoles, but I think that physicality and that mental toughness is what sticks out, at least at the top of the draft.
Now, what would you say going into, May 6th, going into like rookie minicamp, mandatory minicamp, what do you think is the biggest hole in the Jets roster?
Biggest hole? It's got to be defensive tackle. Looking at the roster, anybody outside of Quinnen is going to scare me. I'm more okay with wide receiver because of the Reynolds, Lazard, and my hope for Corley and Smith. Like, I don't have that same feeling in the defensive tackle room. I kind of like Fedarian Mathis. Leonard Taylor is a fan favorite. Maybe there's a hope Fatorma Mulba can be something as the UDFA from West Virginia. But I do think defensive tackle is still the biggest need. Do they find a guy in August that gets cut? Do they bring in a Foley Fadukasi who's over the age of 30 and he's kind of on the back end, obviously, of his career? I'm not sure, but I would say that defensive line, especially the interior, is an immediate need that pops up to me.
And would you consider maybe the offensive line the strength of the team? Like, what would be the strength of this team?
Strength, yeah. Wide receiver, running back, excuse me. I like Brees and Braylon as the 1-2 punch. And Isaiah Davis, I mean, he's the best third and long rusher I've ever seen in my life. We were joking about it last night with Buffalo. Like on 3rd and 17, if you need 10 yards, Isaiah Davis is absolutely your guy. So I do think they do have a strong three-headed monster. And Nwangu gives you something in the special teams game too. So it's a well-rounded room in the running back room. So I would consider that a strength. Cornerback has to be a strength to me. If Quantez can even be a middling, below average backup or whatever in this league, you have such a dynamic room already. 4 names deep with the addition of Thomas. So even Isaiah Oliver gives you something, and he's got a familiarity with Steve Wilkes in this defense. So I would say cornerback is another, but yeah, I think the ultimate strength of this team is the offensive line. Shout out to Joe Douglas for 80% of it. Shout out to Muji and Glenn for the last 20%. But I think it's going to all come together and be one of the best offensive lines we've seen in quite some time. And with a quarterback like Justin Fields, you're going to need as much time back there as possible. His time to throw is abysmal. He does not like throwing the ball quicker than 3 seconds. So hopefully these 5 can give him more than 3 seconds.
Now, what is your take on Justin Fields? Like when the Jets moved on from Aaron Rodgers, everybody's kind of desperate. What the hell are they doing? What are you going to do? And I'm like, you know what? To me, he was the best young option available on the free agent market, where it's like, you didn't, the Derek Carrs, all these guys, that's not going to work for you. At least 2-year deal. He's young, has potential. If he fulfills it, you have your quarterback for the next decade. If he doesn't, you move on while you groom somebody else in the process. Do you think what do you think your chances of Fields succeeding are? Do you think it's like 50-50? Do you have more confidence, less confidence? What do you think?
I would say 60-40 that he does succeed. And based on a couple factors, this might be one of the best, innovative minded offensive staffs he's been around in his career at the NFL level, not the college level. Obviously you had, insane offensive minded guys like Ryan Day and Brian Hartline on the offense at Ohio State. But yeah, I mentioned it before. It's threading a needle. I didn't agree with getting rid of Rodgers, but I also agreed with bringing in Fields over the other guys. So I didn't like that they moved off him, but I was at least happy that they pivoted to the guy I wanted. You have to take a guy with upside at that point. Please don't do the Derek Carr thing. We dodged the bullet the first time. I don't think it would have worked any better now this time around. So yeah, I think it's a 60-40 that he does do better, and maybe doing better doesn't end up being the franchise quarterback. If you're saying what's the percentage that he is the long-term quarterback of this team, maybe that's down to 40%. But I do think it's more close to 50-50 than, not the most people, I should say. A lot of people are really either down on him or very high on him. I was high on him in 2021. He was my guy over Zach. Clearly, my feelings about him have changed over the last 3 years, and I was less optimistic about him. But again, the upside, the rushing ability, the building an offense around him, all those things, Engstrand going from Goff to Fields with a lot of, comparable talent, Brees to Jameer, Garrett and Amon-Ra, obviously Arian Smith and Jamison Williams, if that hits. The tight end, Mason Taylor and Sam Laporta, you can kind of piece together where you can see the same things, but with an athletic quarterback built into it, why couldn't we be a lighter version of the Lions? So it's going to take a lot of finessing with Justin Fields, but I think the early returns so far have been positive, and I have hope that he could be the guy to turn it around.
Yeah, this is where we talked about earlier, kind of banking on your coaching. That falls on him big time, dude. Where you gotta work with him, build up his confidence, and be patient as hell. He's gonna make mistakes. He's gonna do things as you grow out your offense. Like you saw a lot of reports where like Ben Johnson, these guys, it took them 6, 7, 8 weeks just to install their offense and get everybody on the same page. So your first year is a lot of learning curves and growing pains, and then you start flourishing. Now we had that with Justin Fields, who's just trying to save his career at this point while learning an offense, while putting up points and all that thing. So I think Aaron Glenn and these guys are approaching it the right way by being kind of have a strong conviction, but you got to stick with it and be patient with them. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle it. Now, in terms of realistic expectations for the team as a whole, it seems like some Jet fans hate the team because it's Aaron Glenn and Justin Fields and not, Vrabel and Aaron Rodgers. Some fans embrace the whole rebuild. Like, you know what? I like Fields. It's, it's a young team, could be a blue collar team, fun to root for. What's a realistic, floor for this team? 5 wins, 6 wins? How do you see this season playing out, on May 6th?
I would hope it's 6 wins is the floor. I think you have to be visibly one game better than last year. I think if you don't at least have more wins than you did last year, the questions immediately start. Is Glenn the guy? Can he actually do this? Is he going to be the one to turn it around? This whole thing is a dumpster fire if we're picking top 5 and can't get the quarterback that we want anyway. So I think 6 has to be the floor. I don't necessarily see 5 or less wins. Maybe before free agency and before the draft when we were all, well, not everybody, but most of us were, oh no, Rodgers is gone, Adams is leaving, we're just going to be trash. I kind of swung back up a little bit. The floor has to be more wins than last year. I don't care how you get to those 6 wins. I don't care if you're winning 10-3. I don't want to hear a race to 20 points though on the way, but if you're winning 10-3, I'm okay with 6 wins. You have to show at least some progress. One side of the ball has to develop. The defense has to come back to form from 2022, 2023, or your offense has to take a big step from where it has been in the basement and at least show some signs of life under Engstrand, or else we're going to question a lot of things. So I would say 6 is the floor. Maybe 9 is the ceiling. I don't think a double-digit season is in the cards just this yet. Now, if you're competitive in every single game and you just kind of end up losing more than you win, and you're 7-8 or 7-9, 6-10, whatever the records add up to be, I can't do math right now. Whatever that is, I feel like it's more digestible as long as you're competitive. Don't be uncompetitive and win 4 games. Then it's all going to spiral downhill.
That's where I'm at. You want to see them compete week in and week out, but also we've seen so many bad teams over the years. We can tell when they're well coached or not. We can tell when they're prepared. We can tell if they're making adjustments. If you see that, like I expect it to be ugly early on. Like it's going to be ugly because there's so much new coach, new quarterback, new this, new that, new attitude, new all that's going to happen. So I get it. But as this season plays out, you want to see progress. You want to see improvement. And if the Jets are competing but losing to better teams because they don't have the same amount of talent, understand they probably don't. And that's understandable, but it's like, don't fall apart. Don't self-destruct. Don't make excuses. Like that's that whole complacency culture they have in this organization where it's like, oh, well, it's a better team over there. No, well, it's not our day today. And like tired of that, like, and show progress. They do that. I think the fans will buy into it. I honestly but like you said, though, don't win 4 games. You better find a way to win 6 because 6 is an improvement. You know what I mean? That's where you want to see. And then you can say, listen, while you're doing that, you're identifying what's actually on your roster too. Okay, now we know what we have after a year. Now we know we can add next year to be a much better team. They're trying to figure all that out now, which is not easy to do on the fly while you're trying to add other pieces too. So it's going to be interesting, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, there's just too much new, and I don't want to pigeonhole myself into a specific. That's why I gave you a wide range, 6 to 9. But I don't see this being a 4-win team. I don't see it being a 12-win team. Now, if you win 6 games, but you split with Miami and you sweep New England, I'm okay with that. Yep. Because we cannot compete in our division for the last decade plus or whatever this drought has been. We just haven't been that competitive in our division. So that's the quickest way to the playoffs, in my opinion. Factually, it's not just my opinion, but you win the division, you give yourself the best chance. So go compete with those 3 teams. I don't expect you to beat Buffalo, but if you can play Buffalo tight like you used to do, Josh Allen stayed up at night before facing the Jets defense. And we've single-handedly taken him out of the MVP conversation at least a couple times, in my opinion. So you got to be competitive within your division. And if most of your wins come in the division, you can justify having a lower win total to me, like 6 wins, but 3 are in the division, maybe even 4 are in the division. I think that's a huge first step.
No, I agree. And show up on the West Coast games. Just start showing up in games. Like, don't mail in first halves. Don't mail in games. Like, you're going to have your clunker. Every team has them, but don't have like 3 in a row where you're like sleepwalking for the entire first half for 3 weeks in a row. Like that kind of stuff's got to change. And that's where you change your culture. So fascinating, man. I can't wait. Now, before I let you go, dude, how much time do you spend studying players? Because, dude, you dropped a shitload of knowledge today, dude. Like, it's impressive that you know all this. And it's a tough thing to do because when you share opinions like this, you're going to have critics all over the place. Like, everybody knows better than you do. So, but you got to be tough and deal with a lot of it. But how much do you study these players?
Let's see. I have a list of 2026 spring games already loaded up. I'm not diving in yet. I still have to get through some of the UDFAs, but my process is kind of just ongoing forever. Like I'm constantly adding names to my database, constantly inputting. I read, Feldman's Freaks when it comes out in August, and I get all the top athletes in college football, put them in the database. I'm studying. I mean, it's a constant grind with the draft, and I think that's the cool part versus the NFL. A couple years ago, I had to, slow myself down and write draft or Jets, and I had to commit to one, and I've chosen the draft. I will do everything I can during the season for the Jets and, always talk Jets during the offseason. But if I was gun to my head to pick one to talk about forever, it's the draft because it's a 12-month thing. You can talk about what happened when they just got drafted. You can immediately talk about Arch Manning not coming out of school next year. And then, you go right into the prospects that are actually coming out. So I would say on a weekly basis, I probably spend 2 hours a day, most days, probably 4 or 5 days a week watching some type of film or some type of mock draft breakdown or just trying to input any data. I keep a running notes list of all positions. Just if I hear something about a quarterback and I'm able to write it down, I write it down. Okay, he was a former tight end in high school, but he switched to quarterback midway through college. I like just learning those little tidbit nuggets and finding out how like 4-star, 5-star recruits, or Cam Ward was a 0-star recruit at Incarnate Ward, and he made his way up through Washington State, and then he made his way to Miami to the first overall pick. Like that's stuff you can't even do in video games, So like I love hearing those types of stories. And then you obviously get, the sad stories. Like I remember Kwity Paye, reading about him, the edge rusher that went to the Colts a couple years back, and how his family escaped the war in Africa, and his mom carried him on his back for 30 miles to escape the guys that were coming. I forget what they're called, but they had all these guns and they were pushing him out of their country, and she had to walk 30 miles with him on his back, So like you hear all these crazy stories about the draft, and then you see where they finally end up, and you grow an investment into these guys. And even though I'm still at my desk doing this, and I might get the chance to meet some of them at the Senior Bowl, it's such a great time just learning the backstory of these guys. And then you can follow them into the NFL. So you get the best of both worlds. They might not end up with the Jets, but it's nothing like it when you study the draft. It's so much fun, but it's a 12-month process.
And the best place, everybody follow you, jetnation.com, the channel. You're on Jet Nation Radio. You go in there. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, at D Tereman. That's my Twitter. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm not a huge Instagram guy. I'm not really big into the picture posts, but I do like a lot of stories with the link to my article or the link to my videos on YouTube. But it's mainly Twitter at D Tereman, and then the Jet Nation YouTube. Glenn and I are kind of doing our own separate content this summer. We're trying stuff out. I'm doing the film reviews. He's doing some short form and then the longer form shows once a week. We're going to try to meet up a couple times here and there, but trying to bring as much content as possible from Jet Nation, because like you said at the top, you have to like what you do as far as content. And the more we like making the content, the more we think you guys are going to like the content. So I think a lot of new things at Jet Nation are going to stick long term, but this is the reason why, Jet Nation is the longest going Jets fan site in the world. We just passed 20 year birthday, I think, earlier in April. And, some people tell me, they're like, you don't even look like you're 20. And, I'm 30, so it's fine. But they've been around since I was, a little kid watching Chad Pennington play football. So it's awesome to be able to be a part of it. And the community, the camaraderie, everything has been
it's awesome,
welcoming, appreciative. I love all the chat, even the ones that don't like me. And I see a couple in here, but that's part of it, right? You have to have the ones that disagree with you.
Always gonna be there, bro. Always.
Yeah, because it's par for the course at this point, right? But you do it long enough and you end up growing a likening to some of these guys, because they're not here just to agree with everything you say and be a couple bobbleheads in the chat. So I do appreciate them.
Dude, I have like 2 people that every video I make, they insult me on it. Every video, it could be about my video is the sun is shining today. You're an asshole. Perfect. Thank you. That's it.
Seriously.
Every video could, for 2 years now, I have 2 haters that are so committed to hating me. Every they post something. It's like, oh, cool.
Yep. We have a commenter every video. It's like, we had a third host on, Chris, for a little bit too. And it was like, we just went to the comments to find out who Jimmy didn't like from the video. And it was always rotating. It was me, Glenn, it was Chris. Like, I was just glad when it wasn't me, So it's always fun, but you got to chop it up with the ones that disagree too, because that sparks really good conversation. You get to hear more opinions. I would not like to sit up here and agree with everybody. And I would certainly never consider myself the smartest person in the room. So I'm always open to hear people's thoughts and opinions. I'm going to stand on my takes,
Yep.
but I'm not going to, just allow my only voice to be, the one thing that I have, I'm going to listen to.
Well, Dylan, this is my first time actually speaking Jets with you, and dude, you kicked ass, man. We got to definitely do this again. I appreciate your time. I think we were only gonna do like a half hour or something. That did almost an hour, so definitely appreciate it. JetNation.com. Make sure everybody follow. I'll tweet out your information too. Make sure people follow you. And we got to do this again, maybe during the training camp or something like that. Get some updates on what you think about the team and stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna have the return of the old guard. You'll have to come on Jet Nation too.
Let's do
we're
it.
We're have to get a reunion of all the guys together because there's quite a few of them. People don't realize. Yeah, if we had a round table of just ex and current Jet Nation guys, like people would be surprised at the faces that would show up.
100%. Dylan, have a great night. Thank you again. Everybody follow him, JetNation.com. We'll talk to you guys later.